listening to the Post-Apocalyptic Media Podcast, your weekly post-apocalyptic news roundup.
Hello, and welcome back to the Post-Apocalyptic Media Podcast. I'm your host, Shawn, Senior Editor here at Post-Apocalyptic Media, and this here that you're listening to right now is episode number 98. Only two more to that big 100. And it's also a new year. It's 2023, in case you didn't know that, in case you've been passed out the last few week and a half, I guess. So it's a new exciting time. Of course, we didn't have a lot of news during the holidays, during those winter holidays themselves. So I skipped a couple weeks there. But now, right? Now is where it all kind of comes together, and I start talking about everyone's plans for 2023. We have a lot of great stuff being worked on at the site for, like best, most anticipated, that kind of thing for 2023. And we also have some winners from our short story contest, and I'm going to talk about that here in a second. We also have some news of some new shows coming out. One coming out actually this weekend, which is very exciting. And then we have some crazy news too. Although we don't like to say crazy news, we'll say in real life apocalypse, IRL apocalypse. How's that? All right, so this first little thing I want to talk about before we get into the actual news is I want to talk about the short story contest winners. Now, what we did, this is our second year of doing this. I've talked about it on the podcast before, but in case you're new or you haven't heard that, we do a short story contest. So the way this contest works is we would have people submit stories, right? Short stories last year it was between 3,000 and 5,000 words. This year it was between 2,000 and 5,000 words. We figured we can get some shorter ones in there too. And so last year, there were maybe, I don't know, a couple dozen. This year there were a couple hundred submissions. So it was significantly, much bigger contest. It was carried by Reedsy. They shared it. They voted it as one of their top contests of 2022. So that made a big difference, and it pretty much blew up. So I'm very happy with that. This is my baby that I started a couple years ago, and I was really excited to get it going and all that. I love short stories. I don't know if I mentioned it before, but I have a short story anthology on Amazon right now called Through the Aftermath. Ding. And so I do love short stories, and I do love anthologies. And so, this contest was kind of a pet project of mine that I really got into, but it blew up really big. So it took a lot of time, away from other things I could have been doing on the site, to read through these. But I'm not complaining. I'm definitely not complaining. I love doing it. I loved reading these stories. Some of them were amazing. Like, it was really hard to pick three, basically, a 1, 2, and 3. And then, so what I did is I also picked honorable mentions, and then I picked kind of a next, like a runner-up kind of thing. Actually, runner-up and then honorable mentions. I think it went in that order. So there were a lot of winners. There were, I think, 33 total. There were, within the runners-up and the honorable mentions. So a lot of great winners, but it's still, if you consider the fact, I think there were I forgot how many, 208, something like that total, maybe even more than that. I block it out of my mind when I'm done. I'm like, I'm getting this, I'm just, flushing it out of my mind, so I don't even remember what I did. And that's been a few weeks now since I did that. But the point is, the top 3 are on the site. You can go, if you go straight to postapocalypticmedia.com or even just postapocalyptic.com, right there, the big square in the middle of the top of the page, it says announcing the post-apocalyptic short story writing contest winners for 2022. If you click on that, you'll see I have linked in there the 3. They're actually in the post, the 3 stories in their entirety. You can sit there and read them at your leisure. Very good stories. I'm very thankful for all the people who submitted stories. I wish there was something else I could do. Like, I wish I could give the top 50 prizes because there were so many good ones. So what I did is I went through and I rated them on several different categories, and I kept a spreadsheet, and I did all this the whole time. And then at the end, I went through, and I it was out of 10, like out of a 10 score. And so I essentially originally was going to say all the ones that are 8s and above, I'm going to reread. But it ended up being where I reread all the ones that were 9.5s and above. That's how many there were that were really good and in the top thing. So these are all really high quality stories. I'm very, very proud of the post-apocalyptic media community for getting this, getting their stuff in and all that. It's really cool. I don't know, but I'm hoping there will be an anthology, maybe even an anthology series through post-apocalyptic media, showcasing and highlighting these stories. And maybe that'll be something every year. That's what I'm pushing for. So let's hope that happens. Fingers crossed, right? All right, let's get into the actual news, right? News stuff that has happened. So this first story, this happened actually way back on December 27th is when I wrote this up. UFO sightings have skyrocketed since 2021. Now, there's a couple reasons for this. One of them is the fact that there is now a government agency that has been created to monitor this and for people to report to. So of course the reports are going to go up, right? If you have a place to report to, then people are going to report more often. And it's called the All Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, AARO. They say that they've received hundreds. They didn't say exactly how many, but they say hundreds of reports. Now, this is another important thing here. It's just for military personnel. So they've received these reports from military personnel about UFOs since 2021. Now, before that, when they started, the Department of Defense started recording this in 2004. So from 2004 to 2021, there were 144. So, through that stretch of time for there to only be 144, and then in the last, year, basically year and a half, to be hundreds, that's a pretty big deal, right? So I don't know. I found this interesting. I think that, like I said, I think it's because there's more opportunity to report. So that's a big part of it. But also a lot of people are just saying that they're actually recording a lot of these UFO sightings. So I think that's interesting. When I was younger, my younger days, I used to listen to Art Bell, and Art Bell I worked the night shift, and so I would listen to Art Bell at night. It was called Coast to Coast AM, and it was this great show of just where people would call in and have conspiracy theories about aliens and paranormal stuff. And I think one reason I listened to it is because it was the only thing on, really. We had a couple radio stations that basically only played, 4 different songs, and 3 of them were by Led Zeppelin. Not that that's bad, but you get tired of it after a while. And so I started listening to talk radio, and I listened to Art Bell, and the stuff I listened to was absolutely crazy. It was a lot of, and by crazy I mean paranormal stuff like that. And it was really interesting to me. I guess it doesn't really matter if I believe it or not. It's not really the issue here. The issue is the fact that so many people are reporting this stuff. And back then I'd listen to that radio show, and people would call in all the time with really great stories about abductions or sightings or things like that. And he would, of course, his show went on for like 4 hours every night. So he would draw it out, and he would keep the people on for 30, 40, 50 minutes and just talk to them about their thing. And then he would repeat it, and he would kind of, drag it out so that it would be this fill up 4 hours, I guess. But I really enjoyed it. I really, and for that to be back then, and this was probably 2002, I would say. So that was before, all this stuff started really getting reported, I guess, to the government. But now the fact that they have an agency specifically set up for reports and for checking this stuff out, I guess, right? They say in May of 2022, which was, a little less than a year ago, Congress held a hearing to help determine whether this uptick in UAPs, which is what they call UFOs now, it's like unidentified aerial phenomenon, was the work of China, Russia, or other potential adversaries. They didn't know. They didn't know if these were spy planes or whatever it was. It doesn't always have to be aliens. It can be any of this stuff. So they say public safety is the office's number one priority. And that is according to the Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence and Security, Ronald Moultrie. So, yeah, I just wanted to touch on this. I think, especially Derek and Stephanie, the people who run this site, they are very big into the conspiracies of aliens and UFOs and stuff like that. I'm not huge into it, but I do think it's interesting. I think that hearing the stories is interesting. Especially watching the videos. You've ever seen, some of those videos they have of Air Force pilots recording just a crazy light, on their radar, and then it just boom goes off to the side really quickly, and they don't know what it is. If they don't know what it is, it's kind of scary because they're military personnel. So I think it's interesting. Of course, the connection to post-apocalyptic is the fact that there are so many movies out there about alien apocalypses, right? So it's interesting. It's good stuff. But let's move on to an article that Val wrote up called "The Best Dystopian and Post-Apocalyptic Anime in 2023 That You Don't Want to Miss." This is upcoming anime. A lot of it is sequels or, part 2, part 3 of existing anime. Some of it's new. But if you're into anime, I think you should definitely check out this list because it's really well done. She put videos for all of them and explained kind of, where they're at and where they're coming. Chainsaw Man, of course, is one of our biggest, consistently biggest stories on the site, and season 2 is coming out, but they say possibly 2024, but they're hoping for 2023. So yeah, check that out if you're into anime. Lots of great stuff on there. All right, now there's another story, another one that could be categorized in that IRL apocalypse category. This is a story I wrote up a couple days ago, and I love it. I love this story because it's another one that's just way out there. And I am a big fan of AI, as you probably know. And, AI art has become this thing that's very, very polarizing recently. And I'm a fan of it as a tool. I'm actually kind of getting away from it being an artistic thing. I don't know. It's a whole thing. But anyway, so AI is branching out into other things. Of course, they're writing. AI is writing stories. AI is writing novels. AI is having conversations with people. So this company called Deep Brain AI in South Korea, they're based out of Seoul, I believe. They created this new technology that they showed off at the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas. And what it does is called rememory. And it has a semicolon right in there, semicolon memory. It's a service that will let someone talk to an AI avatar of their deceased loved one, right? So if you, let's say your grandmother passed and you wanted to have, more conversations with her and you want to sit down and talk, this is supposed to do that. Like, so what it does, here's the caveat, I guess, is in order to set this service up, the person before they die has to go in. They have to do a 7-hour interview where they film themselves, they talk about things, they answer questions, and that kind of builds up the AI, right? It kind of builds up the answers to questions if you ask them and things like that. 7 hours, that's a long time. That's a lot of information. I'm sure you talk about, how you grew up and your views on things and, things that you would want to talk about with a loved one. So they have that. They also have pictures, videos. They do this all professionally. They take, scans of your head and your body. And then once you pass, then your loved ones can go into a private memorial room and talk to you and say, ask you questions and kind of, and it's back and forth. It's a two-way conversation. This AI will actually reference what was used in the interview and other information about the person and use it to talk to the loved one. Now, they say it's about, I think they said it was like 20 grand. Yeah, $12,000 to $24,000 to set it up, right? And then there's a $1,200 charge, that's US dollars, every time you want to sit down and chat with the AI avatar in a private memorial showroom. So this is expensive, right? It's not for me. It's not for you, unless you're a billionaire. Is Elon Musk listening to the show? I think he might be. I think it's for Elon Musk. That's pretty much it. So you can, you pay all this money, you can set up this avatar, and then you can go in and talk to a deceased loved one. Now, I don't know. I think from a perspective of a loved one, it's a little on the creepy side. It's a little on the I don't think I would do that even if I had the money side, because you got to have closure, and maybe I don't know, maybe that will help with closure. But at the same time, it's someone's passed. It's kind of like that's it. And they show a video. Actually, there's a little trailer of it, and this woman is talking to her husband, and her husband is saying, I've always loved you, and it's always been us, and you're so great. And she just is. She's I had to laugh at one part. Sorry. It's horrible, but I had to laugh because she interrupted him. She kept interrupting him, and I thought that was funny while he was talking. And so they have a conversation, and it seems like she's really, really emotional, of course, about this happening. Now, I think it's safe to say we've all lost loved ones, right? We've all lost loved ones who are very close to us. And I think it would just be different for different people. I'm sure there are people who would say, I would love to talk to my grandfather, mother, father, brother, sister, whatever, one last time. But to set all that up, spend $12,000 to $24,000 and then just do one $1,200 sit down, that seems like a lot. It seems like something that you would want if you really wanted to talk to them all the time. Now, people do go, I haven't done this, but people go to tombstones, right? And they talk to their loved one like that. But this is the tombstone talking back. This is. I just think it's. I can't even imagine it, really. I can't even imagine what it would be like to do that. And I'm skeptical, and I think it's creepy. But if I was in that situation and I was there, I would probably be absolutely blown away. I would probably just be overwhelmed with emotion, and you know what I mean? It would be an incredible experience. But I feel like there's a lot of people who would probably set it up, do it once, and say, that was overwhelming. I'm not going to do that again. That's just what I feel. I don't know. So it's interesting. It's straight out of a sci-fi movie. I think I can think of many movies where they've done something similar. Was it Time Machine? I think the latest Time Machine that they made with Guy Pearce, I think that was the latest one, where he goes way into the future. And it's like a post-apocalyptic future, and there's that what's the word? I want to say like ghost, but it's kind of like a an avatar, like a holographic, I guess, avatar of the librarian, right? Talking to him and kind of like, answering questions about history and things like that. That would be cool, right? Could you imagine that? Like having all the information from the internet in an avatar where you could sit and talk to someone, and instead of just saying Siri, I better not say it too loud, she'll turn on. Like ask her a question, you would have an avatar in front of you who would be like talking to you, you know what I mean? And so that would be a pretty crazy branch off of this, I think. So I don't know. There's a lot of possibilities. I think that we've just scratched the surface on AI and what it can do and what we can do with it. But also it can get pretty scary. And that's why we talk about it here on Post-Apocalyptic Media, because it has the potential to become something that's out of control, and I don't know. I think that's that's what we have to be careful of. I think people are getting really excited about it, and they're like, AI, yay, let's do all the things with AI. But I don't know. We got to be careful. All right, now this last little thing I wanted to talk about is actually good news. It's not creepy and it's not scary. It's actually about The Last of Us. Well, it is kind of scary actually, but it's not real. The Last of Us TV show is coming out this Sunday, January 15th on HBO and HBO Max. And a lot of critics, I'm trying not to sound bitter here. A lot of critics got early access to it, and they got to see all 9 episodes of the first season. Now I'm not really bitter. I don't even know if I'll be able to watch this on Sunday, but I think that I have to resub to HBO and all that, that whole thing. But I think as a person who has not played the games, because I don't own a PlayStation 4 or 5 or 3. Oh no, I do own a 3. It's in a box. But I've never played the games, and so I don't really. I mean, I know a little bit about what it's about. Like, I understand that it's about a fungus, and I understand that the fungus takes over, and I understand also, according to one of these trailers I watched, that the fungus is something that's real right now, and it's actually possible if it were to cross over to human infestation, that this could actually happen. I don't know. That's crazy. But anyway, so the TV show is releasing on Sunday, and of course it stars Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey. I like to just say they're both from Game of Thrones, because they are. But they've had their own, especially Pedro Pascal. He's the Mandalorian. Lots of really, really great movies he's been in. And so they're coming together to be Joel and Ellie from the game. Now, the critics, of course, I noted this in my story about this. This is a story about what the critics think, right? They've seen it. They've seen all 9 episodes. What do they think? Now, what I pointed out in my article is that there are people who have played the game. There are people who have not played the game. There are people who reviewed this as from the perspective of someone who just likes good TV. And then there are people who reviewed it as people who love the game, and they want to make sure that the TV show stays true to that, right? And so, Entertainment Weekly gave it a B-. They said, The Last of Us is less sensitive than sentimental, an end times fable where the apocalypse is a bonding experience and guns are better antiviral defenses than masks. And they gave it a B-, so I think that's pretty good. A lot of these didn't give a rating. Hollywood Reporter, Rolling Stone, Time Magazine. I mean, they all reviewed this, and they all pretty much gave it, good scores. I mean, they really did. But then when you get down to like IGN, well, IGN gave it a great score too, but IGN, that's coming from the perspective of a gamer, right? The person who reviewed this, assumedly, is someone who, played the games, loved the games, and then they are now reviewing how the TV show relates to that, right? So this is what IGN says. They say HBO's The Last of Us is a breathtaking adaptation of one of the most impactful stories told in video games and brilliantly brings Joel and Ellie's journey to a whole new audience. Taking the essence of what made the original tale so enduring, it builds out the world of the game while also switching up some aspects to almost entirely stunning effect. That sounds good, right? That sounds like they really like it. They give it a 9 out of 10. But they go on and say, anchored by 2 outstanding lead performances from Bella Ramsey and Pedro Pascal, it delivers an enriching show for fans of the PlayStation hit while also managing to stay welcomingly thrilling to newcomers. So that's me. I'm the newcomer, and I'm excited about this. I'm excited about potentially one day seeing it. I might do it, mainly for this podcast, maybe do a review, spoiler-free review, something like that. I don't know. I'm not sure. But like I said, I'll have to get HBO Max again and check that out. But January 15th, HBO Max. It's supposed to be a big deal. It's supposed to be really good. The trailers look amazing. The game has always done really well in critic circles. It's gotten perfect scores. I think IGN was one of them. It gave it a perfect score for the sequel for Last of Us 2. So I'm looking forward to that. And and that's another thing is it's written by the guy who did Chernobyl and also the guy who wrote the game, Neil Druckmann. So, so it has that input in there from the game and from a very highly respected producer and writer for a very highly respected TV show. Chernobyl was an amazing show. If you haven't seen that, go out and see that right now. That is a really, really great show. I didn't even intend to watch that whole thing. And I was alive during Chernobyl. I was probably 10, something like that. And I remember it affected me pretty, a lot, because I remember just thinking, being described about this nuclear radiation. And, of course, I was into, post-apocalyptic movies even back then. Threads, Testament, stuff like that were pretty impactful. So it was a big deal to me as a kid, and then watching it and seeing how everything went down was pretty powerful. So I definitely, recommend that show. And so, you have the writer. I think it's more than just the writer. I think it's like the producer and director and stuff like that from Chernobyl over to this. I have high hopes for it. I really think it'll do well, even as a non-fan. I'm not a fan of I just haven't played the game. So, should be cool, should be very exciting, and I'd like to hear if you guys have seen, or you played the game and you see the show, what you think about the connection. That would be interesting. But I think that's about it. That's all the news I have. If you check out the website, we actually have tons more than what I talk about. We have YouTube roundups where I go on YouTube and I find the best post-apocalyptic videos each week. We have some good ones from this week, including an AI art rendition of Fallout 1, which is really crazy. You have to see it. We have tons of stuff on Chainsaw Man, Trigun Stampede online, Trigun Stampede, how to watch it online. We have BlackRock Shooter Downfall, tons of stuff, right? We have the Kickstarter for January. I did the Kickstarter top 10 post-apocalyptic indie Kickstarter projects for January. You have to check that out because I'm a big fan of Kickstarter, as you probably know. But then we also have stuff like our calendar. On the right-hand side there, right-hand sidebar, we have all the upcoming stuff. We have our social media. We have our Discord. If you want to just go talk to us and tell us that we're doing an amazing job, just head over to Discord. And that'll be where we can interact. So that's about it for this episode. I want to thank you all for listening. Should be coming up on 100 here in the next few weeks and or months. And I appreciate everyone for listening. And as always, stay alive out there and always be ready for the big one. Bye-bye.